This is Operation End Times. I'm Ben Hellestead, your Jedi warrior for Jesus. We're back with the Venus Conspiracy 2012 Unraveled. This is part 3. The big event. Like I was saying in part 1 and in part 2, we're living in amazing times. And 2012 is an amazing year. But for what it's worth, probably the next several years will be amazing as well. Me personally, I planted the stake, with Operation End Times, as far as us being in the final week, as foretold in the Bible by the books of Daniel and the book of Revelation. And, for that matter, every single book in the Bible pretty much points to the final week of existence, the end times, the end of time. The planet Venus, the morning star. It was there at the beginning, it'll be there at the end. So what I want to do is continue our examination of the Venus Conspiracy, and we'll eventually get around to, some of the conspiratorial aspects, whether it's the Illuminate, the New World Order, the Freemasons, the Catholic Church, the world governments. But we'll get to that. Maybe part 4 or part 5. But just looking at Venus again. Venus is the closest planet to Earth, and it's actually considered Earth's twin. Some people say it's Earth's evil twin. But Venus, it's kind of the opposite of Earth. It rotates the opposite direction, and one day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus. I know that's hard to understand, but that's the truth of it. But, I'll put some links. So once again, you'll be able to see some amazing information on Venus. But Venus has a special relationship to the Pleiades, and Venus has a special relationship to Earth. Always has. Venus, the reason why, Venus is called the goddess of love or associated with love is because Venus has some kind of harmonic, balanced frequency relationship with Earth. And it's kind of based on its orbit and rotation around the sun and how it, interacts with Earth. So basically the frequencies are musical. It's the 5th and the 6th, 3/2 and 8/5. I'm not really a musician, so, at that point, I get kind of lost, but, makes sense to me. Love, emotions, music, that'll do it to you. You ever listen to a good song, you'll get emotional, fired up, or sad, whatever. But, another amazing fact, Venus and the Earth, as they go around the sun with their orbits, it forms a star pattern that repeats. And we're kind of in the middle of that. The transits of the sun, they happen 8 years apart, but they happen in different cycles. One is like 120 years apart, and another one might be 52 years apart. I'd have to check the exact information for you. But Venus and the Earth forms this pentagram pattern. And you think it's coincidence that here on Earth, there's pentagrams, that star pattern is everywhere? Associated with the occult, Illuminati, and whoever. If you've ever watched any kind of, informational shows, these pentagrams are everywhere, man. Washington has a pentagram on it. The Catholic Church over there, the Vatican has a pentagram. Norway, I found out has a big pentagram across the whole country. But, wherever you look, you find these pentagram patterns. So, right there. That's part of the conspiracy, man. But that's part of the special relationship that Venus has with Earth. So we kind of brought up in part 2, year 2012. Everybody's asking 2 questions. What the heck's going to happen, and when is it going to happen? And, I kind of brought up that, hey, when you look at these matters, you have to take things into consideration. There's the yin and the yang, the mirror concept, good, bad, reflections, past, present, future, and looking through the pipe hole from both ends, But you see different views of the same thing. And hopefully we'll get to that in this part 3 right here. But, it is a good and a bad thing, but what's going to happen? Man, there's all sorts of theories, I brought up in part 2, since we're in the end times, it might be the end of time. And there are prophecies, the Aztecs, the Hopi Indians, the Revelations all talk about time ending, and stars, and new heavens, and new earth. Some people might say the end of the world. It's the end of the world. And we've had some movies, but I'm going to tell you personally, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. Not in 2012, and, maybe not for a while. The end of time, I don't know that even necessarily happens in 2012. Even though I believe right now, in the big circle of time, the Alpha and Omega model that I kind of set out there, that the constellations is the big, clock time machine. In that scenario, I don't know that the end of time is 2012, But we might be real close. And there's all sorts of additional alignments and crazy stuff happening in the next several years. 2014 and 15, there's all these blood red moons. But that being said, 2012 has a lot of signs, a lot of weird stuff happening. Some people say it's the second coming. The second coming of who? Well, usually that's Jesus. But, the Aztecs, they were thinking that 2012 is the return of the serpent god, Quetzalcoatl, who's also known as the Pale Rider. The second coming of Jesus, that kind of ties into, the final week, the book of Daniel, the book of Revelation. Both the Quetzalcoatl and the second coming of Jesus, you kind of get the concept of God's gate. If Jesus is coming back, he's coming from heaven to earth. Coming down a ladder, coming down a gate, coming down a portal. Quetzalcoatl, same thing, the alignment of the pyramids in Mexico and Giza in Egypt to the Pleiades. So the second coming, I would just say, of God or the gods. Jesus, Quetzalcoatl. What's going to happen? A second son. Some people think the sun is God, but a second sun, possibility, Jupiter, Venus, a random star, Nibiru, dwarf star, who knows? That could be part of the shift in time. Disaster. Some people think that just disaster's coming, earthquakes, huge earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, all very possible. And that's all tied into the cosmic clock and the 26,000 year cycle. Is that if the truth be told that, there could be some randomness to earthquakes and volcanoes, but let's just say beyond that randomness, there's actually precision timing of earthquakes, because when certain planets and stars line up, it creates gravity wells and energy streams and, all this astral dynamics, and boom, you get earthquakes, big volcanoes, extreme weather. And you know what? All that stuff brings disaster and ends people's worlds. If you die, in Fukushima, 30,000 people, it was the end of their world. God rest in peace. Some people think there's some kind of evolution that's going to happen in 2012 or, in the near-term future. Going from 666, a carbon-based life form, because carbon is 666, to 616, which is carbon 7. I'm not Einstein, so in that molecular stuff, I start losing it myself. Some people think that we're going to have a spiritual evolution where we go from the third dimension to the fifth dimension, which is heaven. Could be, like some kind of enlightenment. Some people say it's the pineal gland in our brains gets turned on. We go from 10% to 100% of our brains, or somehow our DNA gets modified, our chromosomes. Some people think there's going to be a pole shift. The Earth flipping its poles. There's some truth to that. The sun's magnetic field might reverse based on an alignment of stars and planets. Pole shift, hey, definite possibility. And then, there's kind of like the stuff from space, disasters from space, which is meteors, comets, asteroids, planetX, and Nibiru. If there's some X factor out there, that could hit the Earth, or if it's a dwarf star or a black hole, somehow that's affecting what's going on. And you know what? I just linked in, 9Nania, has this thing on the 377.8 day earthquake pattern that's been in existence since 2004, and it's shifted the Earth's axis. So you might check that out. Some people, here's a grouping of stuff. That 2012. Aliens, first contact could land, the Antichrist could show up, the Nephilim, the return of the giants, 7/7/2012 is a date that's kind of thrown out there, or just some kind of astral phenomenon, a planet, a star, something, some sign in the sky, a big fire-breathing dragon, comet flying on by, stars falling to Earth, just some kind of astral phenomenon. But, with the aliens and the Antichrist, that kind of ties back into like a Stargate or a portal. Demons coming through the fifth dimension, or, aliens somehow coming through a wormhole. The giants, some people think they're digging up from, within the Earth. But all that stuff, as far as the Antichrist and the giants, that would be happening in the final week, as foretold in Daniel and Revelations. I want to real quickly, I was looking in the book of Enoch. Enoch 18, verse, kind of towards the end of 18. It's a short little book. But, Enoch is having some kind of a vision, and it basically looks like outer space. So he's traveling, and in Enoch 18, verse 14, he says, "And there I beheld 7 stars." Is that the Pleiades, or is that maybe the constellation of Orion? There's, I think, several constellations that have 7 stars. But he saw 7 stars like great blazing mountains, like spirits entreating me. And the angel said, "This place, until the consummation of heaven and earth, will be the prison of the stars in the host of heaven. The stars which roll over fire are those which transgressed the commandment of God before their time arrived, for they came not in their proper season. Therefore he offended with them and bound them until the period of the consummation of their crimes in the secret year." Could 2012 be the secret year? And, talks about God bounding those stars. And guess what? That's in Job. You find the reference where God says, "Can you bind the Pleiades? Can you bind Orion?" Is that what is being talked about here? But it's all about stars not being in their proper place and season. Kind of shifting ahead. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Enoch 64. It's talking about Noah, how he cries out to God, "Hear me," 3 times to God, and he says, "Tell me." This is chapter 64, verse 3 in the book of Enoch. Noah says, "Tell me what is transacting on earth, for the earth labors, and it is violently shaken. Surely I will perish with it." So Noah, prior to the flood, was experiencing these huge earthquakes, and it was scaring the bejesus out of him. But the rest of that chapter, basically that's what it's saying is, hey man, the end is coming. Judgment, accountability. And even Jesus in the New Testament, when they asked him about signs of the end, he said it'll be like the days of Noah. So a big, huge earthquake is not out of the question. A lot of people are predicting this summer the Antichrist makes his or her appearance. I kind of believe that's what's unfolding, but it's the yin and yang. What I'm going to tell you is, for all the bad stuff that's coming down there, there's just as much good stuff. You just got to be on the right side, the good side. But the Antichrist, I was telling a buddy of mine, if you ever read the story, A Yankee in King Arthur's Court, it's about a guy that traveled back in time, but he got thrown in prison, and they were going to kill him. In order to save his life, he had a farmer's almanac, and he knew when the eclipses of the sun were going to occur. So he told the people that were going to kill him, he said, hey, you better not kill me. I'm a powerful wizard, and you know what? I will darken the sun. And they said, oh yeah, show us. And he said, on Sunday at noon, the sun will go dark. And sure enough, it did, because he knew. He had that farmer's almanac, because he was from the future, telling him that eclipse was going to happen. But you know what? I kind of feel that is the Antichrist scenario. When you find, I think it's Revelations 12 or 13, where it talks about the false prophet being able to pull fire down from the sky, and it's these miracles, and everybody is deceived. Well, you know what? The reason he might know how to do that is he's not actually doing that. He just knows that the timing, because he's foreseen it in the planets and the stars, that it's an event that's going to happen. So he takes advantage of it and says, I'm the one that's doing this. Whereas he's not. He just has some knowledge that nobody else has. So all the foolish people, the Kool-Aid drinkers, whoever the heck they are, they're going, oh my God, this guy is something special. So that's why we got to be aware of what's going on, so that you're not deceived. That's another possibility. All right, you know what? This is the Venus conspiracy, the big event. What is coming? When is it coming? There might be some really big things in 2012, but I think we're still in the first to second year of the final week, so there's several more years of stuff unfolding, amazing stuff unfolding. So that's what we all got to pay attention to. But the tribulation, is in front of us, and it's a good thing, because it's our opportunity, man. There's a huge reward for safely transiting the tribulation, making it through the wilderness, and forming a new covenant, with God through Jesus. That's how that works. All right. Think positive. God bless y'all. And, part 4, I'll try and get it up as soon as I can. All right. Take care.